Hi, everybody. I know, I'm looking at that camera, EJ. Thank you. Don't you see that I'm looking at it? Like clearly?
No.
Weird.
No, I do.
I'm looking right at it.
I didn't know. I just want to make sure you knew.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to MOONCAST. I live stream every week on exact this same time, mostly because, okay, hopefully I will miss in the edit in the future. But anyway, I'm Luna. What, EJ?
What kind of intro is that?
I don't know. It's weird intro. I'm
It's
sorry.
awful.
I know it's bad. Okay, take two. Hi, everybody. Welcome to MOONCAST. I am Luna. I am a Vietnamese communist born and living in Vietnam. And welcome, everybody. Today, the main topic today is the topic that a lot of people have been talking about a lot before, which is, will Vietnam pick a side, the USA or China? And let's talk about it today. And let's find out what side will Vietnam take. And also, to warm up before we go into the main topic, we will talk about many other interesting news that just happened lately in the world and in Vietnam too. So, first of all, how are you today? How are you tonight? How are you this morning? A lot of people say that, hey you, there's some Vietnamese comrades in here. Các bạn ơi, chào nhá. I just say hello, a very friendly hello to my Vietnamese comrades in the chat. All right. Okay, peace. Yes, peace. Let's talk about So a few weeks ago, we just in our one of our mooncasts before we talk about how India decided to stop all the rice exporting, and India accounts for about 40% of the world's rice. What did you call it? I forgot the word rice. I lost my English ability. Help me.
What did you say?
India accounts for 40% of the world resource for rice. All right.
Exports or imports?
Export.
Yeah.
India export and it accounts for 40% of the whole world rice consumption.
What's the word you were missing?
The verb for it accounts for the whole world. A noun for it. Oh, I forget about it. Just forget about it. Thanks. Thanks. Bye. Thank you, EJ. Bye. Thank you for not helping.
I thought it did. You said it perfectly.
Gosh.
You didn't miss any words.
I did not miss any words. Okay, good. All right. So the whole world right now is in a crisis. All right. The whole world right now is in a rice crisis because they cannot buy rice from India anymore, the number one country in the world that exports the most rice. Vietnam and Thailand is number two. Usually we are just very close to each other, and we constantly, compete with each other for the number second or the number third. So Vietnam, because of, playing a very important role in the world food security, that is why a lot of countries are now having, agreement and meetings with Vietnam talking about the food security in their country. And yeah, Vietnam is trying to help the rest of the world about this and a lot of countries. So let's just read a short article real quick. It's in Vietnamese and I will translate into English right now. Right here. Let me translate this into English. All right. Many countries like rice. Prime Minister of Vietnam affirmed our readiness to support. All right. Sharing with the concerns of many countries about the risk of food scarcity due to the impact of declining global rice export supply, mostly because of India. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính affirmed that Vietnam is ready to support and cooperate. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính and East Timor Prime Ministers Sanana Gusmao met on the afternoon in Indonesia, and they clearly talk about this, and the article also said like it's not just like ASEAN countries talking about this, but a lot of other many other countries in the world starting to like looking for different resources of rice. In Vietnam and Thailand are the two most possible solution for those countries, and Vietnam will also promises to help other countries who that is like that are like
What?
remove this. All right, this just keep popping up, kind of weird. The new stream browser. All right, so that's it. I am not sure what country are you in, and I'm kind of a little bit curious and worried about your country's situation in the in the next year or something like that, because we are safe in Vietnam because we have a food security here and we have a national rice reservation, means that we will always make sure that there will be enough rice for Vietnamese people domestically, and we have a price stabilization, especially for rice. It means that we always make sure that rice is affordable, especially affordable to poor people in Vietnam, no matter what kind of crisis we are having. And we only export the surplus amount of rice that we can make. So like despite how much we want to help the rest of the world, but we have to maintain our food security first. So I'm pretty concerning about, your situation, especially the countries that do not have a strong agriculture, such as, countries in Europe and the USA, especially that India stopped exporting rice. Russia, they make a lot of wheat, and now that's because of the complicated situation, you cannot buy or sanction on Russia, you cannot buy wheat from Russia anymore. And now India stopped exporting rice, like on top of everything. This is pretty much a crisis coming, Kai said from Chile, considering how much farming we do, we should have enough to feed our people. But last year, I mean, you should. Oh, especially Brazil. If you're Brazilians and you're watching this, last time I remember that during COVID-19, the pandemic is still going on, still killing people. But when it first emerged and we still like surprised and shocked about it, I remember that there was a really bad food crisis in the USA, and the solution at the USA was that they forced Brazil to sell beans and rice to the USA. That's by the country domestically, like a lot of the country was having food insecurity, and the price of rice and beans got raised in like drastically in just a matter of 1 week. So that was what I was kind of afraid that's going to happen again, even though you have the new president already, and I hope that the new president Lula will care more about the food security of the country. But I am sure that the USA will push more pressure on countries like Brazil, Argentina, or Chile, with countries with a lot of agriculture that's the same America continent. So I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen. Us in the imperial courts are screwed. We don't produce anything new. The only thing that you do nowadays is service. That's it. Most of it. You don't have factories. You don't have strong agriculture. Yeah, I mean, and the most of the agriculture that you make is corn, to make corn syrup for your products, which is not good for food security. On July 10, India announced that it would restrict exports of non-basmati rice to calm domestic rice prices that had risen more than 30% in October 2020. Wow, 2022, 30%. That is wow. Okay. My first time here in the channel is when Luna spoke about how the Vietnamese government treat the COVID crisis and free food program. Yeah, I remember that very, very well. I mean, at that time, it was, I don't know, it was a bit scary to us. Got locked down in the house for like a month, very strictly. But now looking back, it was actually not that bad because we got help from the government and we truly felt like we were not left alone by, the people, the community, especially the government over there, because we had, free tests, free treatment of COVID-19. They went to our doors to have the COVID test like once every 2 or 3 days. And they gave us like free food like nearly every single day, and they changed the food all the time. Like they gave me a bunch of free vegetables every day, and then they gave me like free bread, and then there's a volunteer team members to go get people, a specific like letters. Like we had a form like a small like piece of paper like this, and we wrote down our name, our home address, and what we want to buy, and then they put that out on the door, and then the volunteer team members would just like go door to door to collect that and try to buy all the stuff that we have that we want to buy in the list, and then just brought it back to our home. It's pretty sweet like that. I mean, it's a traumatizing experience, but it's actually make us more, we trust the community around us more, and we know that in the future, if the same thing happened like this, we would survive. Oh, yeah, Cornelius just asked the question that I just read the answer before. Wait. It's popping so much right now. Amrit, right here too. I'm so sorry. Why is India dropping rice exports? Is there not enough domestically? The rice in India, according to what they reported, was, there was a lack of domestic rice in India, and the rice prices got risen for about 30% in the matter of just 1 year or something like that. So it will cause huge problems if India do not stop exporting rice. So to protect their domestic people, their domestic economy and the life of their people, they had to stop exporting rice. All right. The next is I want to talk about, since we talk about rice, farmers in Vietnam. A lot of farmers in Vietnam, because 70% of our country is still farmers, and it is a big part of our daily life. It is a big part of our economy. And as you know, farmers tend to face a lot of problems, and they usually, have, like live in poverty or near poverty line. And it is a sad fact, even though Vietnam is trying to help and support those people in poverty and near poverty line, but we are still a poor and developing country, so we cannot just meet all of the demands of all of our people soon enough. So that is why many Vietnamese farmers are getting together to help each other. Let's read this article. Frontier farmers contribute capital to help each other build houses. After the ex-rice crop, farmers contribute money to choose a disadvantaged household to help, with money to build a new house without any interest. And the revolving chain has a mutual meaning. In early September, in his own special's house, Nguyễn Văn Hóa, a member of the group that owned, a tailstream kind of aqua agriculture like that, said that his childhood, his family had a lot of difficulties and didn't have any plan to do the farming. And then after like when the government gave him the farmland and so he can start his farm, but also the life was still very rough and hard, so he could not still, he's just trying to farm and try to feed his family, but he could not have a nice just a decent house yet. So together he and many people in the same village get together, and the way they did it is this. All right, let me just explain it to you about this system. I don't know it's the same thing in the West or not, but it's something we call hội in Vietnamese. And if you remember our streams with Silver Spook, indigenous Hawaiian comrade, in Hawaii they also have the same thing. They call it Hui, and it means that a group of people in the same community will get together and support each other, especially economically. So how it works in Vietnam is that let me explain, because my family also joined this for a few years and it did help a lot. And this is how we do it. A group of people around 10 up to like 15 the most. Should not be too many though. Usually, like, we trust each other really much. We live in the same area. We know everybody, and we trust really, really much like that. And we decide that each year or once every 6 months, it depends on the financial situation of that group. For example, my family did like once every year. So every year, all of the, like, let's say 10 members of the group get together, and each of them can spend, like, they vote together, like, all very democratically. Each of them will donate around $200 for 1 year, which is affordable for all members. And got together like that, like all 10 members of 200, they have $2,000. And then the team also will have, like a lottery system to pick up the number of who will take the money first and who will take the money last. Okay, so like every year, one member would have a $2,000 to do what they need in their, for their own demand like that. So I mean, $2,000 goes a long way in Vietnam, especially for poor people in rural areas. So that money means a lot to people like that, and there is no interest whatsoever. It's solely based on the trust system. And we do that because we trust each other really much and we know each other's family. So that is why we do it. And that is how we get together and we help each other like that. So it means, I mean, it's kind of a win-win situation where, like, it just means, like, for you lend the money, some of your money to the people who are in need, and altogether it actually can help. And the next year, it is your turn to take it. And and usually with the numbers like that, it's the lottery system, as I said, to choose the turn that you will take the money. Usually we can negotiate it like, oh, it's this family, I can take the money like in the next 2 years, but then I need the money now, so go talk to that member to try to like persuade them to change something like that, and we work out in that way. I mean, it is an interesting system to consider. But I don't know that it would be possible in the US though, because you have so much alienation and individualism that I'm not sure that you would be open to your people like that to ask for help. But that is how it works in Vietnam, because we are a very collective society. We live in a community where we know each other very well and we really trust each other, and we really want to help other people like that. All right, I'm checking the chat right now. The sorghum grows very well in my area in the US and sell for $13 per metric ton. as animal feed, and at the store is 10 per kilogram, $10 per kilogram as food, almost 1,000 times more. Well, that is, when that's exactly the problem that will happen in an economy that is controlled by capitalists, because they would buy the raw products from farmers with very cheap price, and they raise the price really high to get the surplus value, the money thing. That is why in Vietnam we have a policy. First of all, I've been talking about this a lot, but I would say this is again that we talk a lot about all the farmers in Vietnam own our own means of production. It means that we allocate land equally to every farmer in a rural area. And that is the truth that if you were born in rural area in Vietnam, you will be allocated a piece of farmland as is equal to everybody else. It will not make you rich, tell you that. You cannot just accumulate as much land as you want. We have a maximum for that because we want to protect everybody. And you will not get rich. You cannot build houses or mansion on it because it's like a zoning law. If it's a farming land, it's only used for farming. What it does is that it would. Yes.
You got some audio issues.
Oh, really?
Yeah, talk.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Wow. Okay, it's better now. Check.
No, I gotta mute for 1 second. I'm gonna mute for 1 second, everybody. Tell them.
I'm gonna mute for 1 second to fix audio problem. Sorry, comrade. What's it? Two, three. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'll get a static from my mic. Here, we are fixing it.
Keep talking. I think you're good. Just keep talking.
Okay, good. All right, now let's check the chat. All right. What was I talking about? Farmers protection. All right, all farmers in Vietnam own a small piece of land, and what the government is doing to protect them is this. For example, like rice. Right, we're talking about rice here. Any rice processing companies, when they buy rice from farmers, there's obligation, there's regulation that they have to follow, is that they have to make sure that they will pay the prices to the farmers that will make sure that at least the farmers will have about 33% of profit coming from their rice. That is the obligation. They has to pay 30% more, at least 30% more, so the farmer can have a profit. And then when they process the rice, when they bought from farmers, there is no corporate farms in Vietnam. No, all the farms are owned by the farmers. So when the processing rice companies, they bought rice from farmers to make sure at least like 30% will be the profit of the farmers. They can sell the rice in two ways. They sell the rice domestically, or they can export rice. Now we do not control the rice prices if it's for the export market, because it would depend on the free market, right? The price would high and low depend on the demands of the global economy. But when they sell the rice domestically, there is price stabilization programs. That is, we set the top price for all kind of rice, and the company cannot surpass that. They can, like That is the point of that price stabilization program, is to make sure that the prices of rice always affordable to everybody, especially to poor people. So that is why Vietnam food security is pretty good. We have a pretty well food security and price stabilization like that. All right. The next is I want to talk about this a little bit before we go to the main topic. Let's talk about this for 10 minutes. How many of you in the chat has been in a job interview that is more than once? I mean, like more than one interview. My question is, for example, when I had to years ago when I still work in an office as an office, and in an office job. Many times I had to get one job, I had to join at least like 3 or 4 interview, including tests. And I hate it really much. And you know what? It's getting worse and worse nowadays, especially in the USA. There's an article right here. I mean, should I just show it on screen? Just I just talk about it? It's not that important actually. I'm just saying that there are many jobs that require more than 2 or 3 interviews to get. To me, it is a waste of time, waste of money, and a lot of stress, unnecessary stress. I remember that in 2018, when I was like unemployed and I applied to a lot of jobs and I hated this. This was horrible to me. I applied for a job and I had to do 3 different interviews. And of course, I failed after the third one. I was like, oh, so what's the fucking point? What is the point of the first, like, 2? And I felt kind of, I mean, a little bit humiliated and kind of inhumane system where why don't they just like get together and be good at it by just like reading my resume and maybe choose the most suitable candidates, like 2, 3, 5, up to 5 only, and then just have a one interview to decide which the best, and then give them like 2 months of like to test that. Why do I to take like 3 interviews and then realize I failed because they have so many candidates? Like, can they be better than that? They big whole corporation, whole big huge international group. Can they do better than that? It's really annoying and a waste of a lot of time and money, because to go to join a job interview like that, we have to have a, all right. It's just annoying. I just want to know about your experience. I estimate like 1:30 ratio between landed job and application follow-up, interview, possible follow-up. Okay. Hey. Definitely not getting paid enough for all of that. I remember another time I had to do a job interview and I thought it was just one time interview, and they came there and they just gave me a piece of paper with a bunch of math questions. It was like, what? I was applying for customer service. Why do I have to answer SAT question, which I am not good at? I never learned. I don't care, and it's not related to my job at all. It's really like, what in the world like that? I'm applying for a job service to help customer dealing with their problems. Why do I have to answer this economy answer with dry like I have to draw graphics like this? It's just unnecessary. I had to interview with HR and a hiring manager, and then the district manager. They made me wait a week while they decide. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. All right, let's move to the main topic today, which is Vietnam standing in between the USA and China. And now if you just go Google and just Google quickly Vietnam, the USA, you will be bombarded with news from a bunch of Western media like outlets talking about how, the USA is having an official visit in Vietnam. Joe Biden is visiting Vietnam on September the 10th to 11th, and how Vietnam will sign the strategic partnership with the USA, and how this is gonna piss off China. And now let me tell you this. It is true that Joe Biden is coming to Vietnam next week. And we don't know for sure that the topics that will be discussed in Vietnam, between Vietnam and the USA at all. And in fact, let me read an interview. A news, an article from Vietnamese perspective here in the US, right? About the US official visit. Here we go. And this is how we deliver that news to our people. US president visits Vietnam from September 10 to 11th. EJ, I had to look at the screen to read the article. I'm sorry.
You didn't put the article on the screen.
Oh,
I just did it.
can you add it? Oh, thank you. All right. US President Joe Biden will make a state visit to Vietnam on September 10, 11. Right, September 11, very important day in the US, huh? Wow. The invitation is from the General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng. All right, that is Joe Biden. All right, the statement stated that at the invitation of General Secretary of Central Committee of the Communist Party of Vietnam, Nguyễn Phú Trọng, President of the United States Joe Biden will make a state visit to Vietnam from September 10 to 11th. The earlier Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson. Gosh, you can change new word. Google, can you do better? Google Translate. Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Phạm Thu Hằng said, "We believe that the visits of senior leaders of the two countries will further deepen Vietnam-U.S. relations, bringing the two countries' relations to stable, sustainable, and long-term development in all fields, contribute to maintaining peace, stability, cooperation, and development in the regions as well as in the world." On a report about on September 1st, 9 and the 12th or something like that, the U.S. heavy military transport aircraft landed by airport, bringing many goods and specialized vehicles to serve U.S. President Joe Biden's visit to Vietnam. All right, let me talk about this a bit later, but okay, that is all we say in Vietnam to Vietnamese, but there is not a single word about how Vietnam and USA will sign a strategic partnership agreement. Like not a single thing. And all the news about, Vietnam will sign, they all coming from the US side. It is single-handedly reported only by the USA. Vietnam says nothing about it. If we just say that here have an official visiting, that's it. That is really, it says a lot about the intention and the true purpose of this visiting coming from the USA, and how they are manipulating, the audience into believing on like, oh, Vietnam is siding with the USA, or China will not be happy about this. So like, no, both Vietnam and China do not say anything about this. It's only from the USA side. So it's pretty weird, isn't it? And also, I have to tell you this. China, they've been saying many, many times already that the world's politics should not be, and is not a zero-sum game. You don't need to step on each other for your economic thrive. We all can just cooperate and develop together. And we totally agree with that. We do not need to compete each other. It is not a zero-sum game. we can develop together. And the perspective that Vietnam has to pick a side.
About the official Vietnam policy.
Yes, exactly. So Vietnam agree with our stance that we can always just cooperate together and develop together. And this is official foreign policy in Vietnam. Foreign affair policies. Let me do Google real quick so I can read it for you, so I can prove to you that I'm not lying to you. All right. Here we go. Let's put this on screen here. Okay, so in our official foreign affairs, especially related to national security issues, we have a 4-no policies, which is here, the 4 no's. Vietnam's defense policy is peaceful and self-defensive with our 4-0 policy. What are these? What are those policies? All right. Vietnam advocates for not joining any military alliance, not align with one country to oppose the other, refrain from allowing foreign countries to set military bases or use Vietnam territory against other countries. So there's no foreign military bases in any land or the sea of Vietnam. And the fourth one, like, do not use force to threaten to use force in international relations. That is a 4-no in Vietnam. That is official policies. Is that we will not change it anytime soon. So that is why, like, the US keep talking about Vietnam need to pick a side. And here's the thing too. Here's the thing. You need to understand this. Even if in this official meeting, Vietnam and the USA sign a strategic partnership, even if that happens, all right, it doesn't mean any military like alignment or any like allies or nothing like related like that at all. In Vietnam, the strategic partnership just means more trade, period. End of story. It just means that we will trade more with each other and we will try to import and export our products more from each other, because like it's really hard for Vietnamese products to export to the USA because our products are so cheap compared to the USA prices. And the USA, with its very strong protectionism to its domestic products, they will find all kinds of excuses to not importing our products. And so with signing the strategic partnership, if it happens, it just means that the USA will agree to lower some of its requirements for our products to enter the US market. And that just means it. And the funny thing is that the way that the Western media outlets report about it, they make you think somehow that by just strategic partnership, it means Vietnam becomes an ally of USA, Vietnam joining the US military force or something like. No, dude, even if it happens, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means more trade. That's it. I don't know how many times I have to say this. I hope you understand that there's no way that Vietnam will ever join a force with the USA or become its ally or become its lapdog. No. Get it? Understand that? Okay. And now here's the thing. Let me show you an example of when Vietnam really want to change our relationship title with other countries, like this country. Give me a second. All right, so Vietnam and Malaysia, another country in Southeast Asia, we are actively talking about, changing our partnership title from just a partnership to strategic comprehensive partnership, something like that. The same title that the USA wanted so bad recently. And since we both agree with it, that is why we have an official article talking about how Vietnam and Malaysia is working together to change our to deepen our relationship, and we change into strategic partnership. It's like, yeah, this is an example for you that, okay, when Vietnam is sure about something, we want to do something, we will announce it. But about the USA, there's not a single word about this at all. So it's kind of something that is off here, right? Again, I could be wrong. Maybe Vietnam next week can sign something with USA, but I don't know. For now, with all the evidence right here, it's very, very different. And all the news saying that Vietnam USA strategic partnership is just from one side from USA. All right, so here we go. Okay, just a little bit off topic, talking about fascism in USA. I learned about Paperclip and Gladio, then read Parenti's Black Shirt and Rats. Even with the receipt, very hard to convince Americans they are entitled to fascism. Yes, exactly. EJ, my partner, just had a really good, great documentary about fascism. Lecture came from Professor Michael Parenti himself. It's a really great document. EJ, will you, paste a link in the chat? Thank you so much. But yes, totally agree with you. Even though the US, like Americans, they are indoctrinated so much that even when the research or the evidence or the proof showing right in front of their face, they would not believe it because the truth is too painful for them to look at, and they rather look at, the lies that they've been told to a lot, because that makes them feel better. Because, like, oh, the countries that imagine that your whole life you've been indoctrinated to the point that you really believe that your country is the greatest country in the world. All right, and you believe that this is the best a human race, a nation can have. So if I cannot have it, the rest of the world cannot also. Because when they learn about actually it is a very undeveloping country, a lot of problems, and it's definitely not the greatest country in the world. And fascism is very strong in the US, and it is a bourgeois democracy where the bourgeoisie maintain the dictatorship in the society. The truth is painful. So I totally understand how vast majority of Americans are not willing, not ready to look at the truth. Oh, bye, Cornelius. Bye. Oh, man. I missed a super sticker when the stream started. Oopsie. It was a car that sent me a super sticker. I'm checking it. Oh my gosh, so cool that I can just... Ooh, I go back far enough. Gio, thank you so much for your super sticker. I hope that you're still around. Sorry I missed a super sticker. I'm checking the chat right now. Oh, this is a good news. Luna, your awesome video for the CPSA International Congress helped me decided to join. Hey, welcome. I hope that you you will find it helpful, and I hope that you will contribute to the cause of the whole working class in the USA. I hope so too. I mean, congrats. Vietnam has China comprehensive strategic partnership of cooperation, which is the highest. No, actually, I don't know why people keep saying this. I've been seeing kind of this kind of brittle like in the last few days, and I mean I don't know where this come from, but actually it's not. The like we have a many tiers for our relationship, and the lowest is just comprehensive partnership, and then strategic comprehensive partnership, and there's something strategic partnership with like cooperation with that, and but the highest is we have the two countries that we have the highest relationship with. It was Laos and it was Cuba. And Laos and Cuba, they are like the great friendship. That is the highest title for our relationship, and I don't see that there would be a third country that would join that soon. I don't think so. It's Cuba and Laos that have the highest title of relationship, which is the great friendship or something like that. I mean, no, yeah, and that is it. It's not any other. No, it's Laos and Cuba. So actually, so it's like the U.S. They've been talking about strategic comprehensive partnership as something like it should be a life changing or like so much or that the top tier or something like. No, you're far from top tier. No, it's far from it. They now Vietnam and the U.S. has the lowest kind of tier though. Ayu, Malaysian comrade, hey there. I'm so happy to see that Vietnam is forming such a strong partnership with Malaysia. I hope that despite that with the former right wing minister will rob off his socialism here. All right, yes. Vietnam and Malaysia, we've been having good relationship with each other, and we are enhancing our relationship very very soon, and we're actively working on that. So yeah, very nice to talk to a Malaysian comrade in the stream today. All right, okay, this is another important point that I want to talk about is that, okay, all of us know that next week, September 10th to 11th, Joe Biden will visit Vietnam, But you know what? Right this moment, right now, Vietnam Communist Party is having an official meeting with the Communist Party of China in Vietnam right now. So it's interesting, right? A week before the official visit of the U.S., Vietnam is having a meeting with China, the two communist parties, and let's see what the two countries are talking about in this official meeting that is happening right now. And it's a meeting between the two communist parties, not the government, because the Vietnamese government just had an official visit to China a few months ago, but now it is the official visit of the two parties. Here we go. Can I translate it? Oh no. Or if not, I can just oh, I can't. Okay. So, okay. Vietnam Net, I cannot translate this. But anyway. Yes.
You should be able to translate it.
Okay. No, I can't. Huh. Translate, can I translate it? Vietnamnet somehow has some kind of thing to stop people from translating this article. Okay. All right. So, long story short, I just translated real quick to you that here, this is a tool. The first secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam and the head of Foreign Affairs Department of the Communist Party of China, they are meeting right here. And in this meeting, the two parties talking about how the two countries will maintain our socialist path. We strengthen our partnership in the future. Yeah. Here you go. I mean, it just yeah, that's the news. That's the two people are working on it right here. Okay, I'm reading the chat right now. Okay, so there you go. That is so what's been going on in you know, the world right now with the relationship between Vietnam, the US and China. So I can comfortably answer the question in the stream today is that will Vietnam pick a side between US and China? The answer is no, we will not pick any side. We will maintain our neutrality. We call it our strategic neutrality. Vietnam will try to cooperate with as many countries as possible to create peace and stability. And Vietnam will not join any other country against other countries, especially talking about military cooperation or something. No, we will not do that. So and also like there are a lot of you know that the you interested in history, there are a lot of things that has happened between the three countries, and we are we are just adult. Vietnam and China, we are both adults, and we treat problems and issues as grown-ups. It's not like I the way I think it, like the USA is very childish. I don't know, because they are very arrogant about their power or something like that. They super arrogant about that. They really just act as if the whole world has to listen to them, has to follow them, or something like that. But no, we need to grow up. We need to treat each other as adults, and we will not sell ourselves and our nation just to have some economical kind of benefits, something economic benefits. Like, no, it should not work like that. And again, I think that a lot of you, like especially if you're from the imperial core, you will not understand or fully grasp so complexity of the relationship between Vietnam and China. And if you can't, just stop, because you will not be able to understand it with, especially with the limits in your knowledge or limits in your information source, because mostly you can just read English, and although mostly vast majority of the sources in English are bad, It will not give you a full understanding of the complexity of our relationship. So, I mean, just, stop, speculating and just actually look and watch Vietnam and China would do. I mean, how many times the USA been saying that, oh, Vietnam and China would, this will happen, that would happen, this poll says this, that research says that, oh, Vietnam and China will fight each other soon, and Vietnam should sign with the USA. Like, no, dude, just look at how many years the mainstream media outlets in the West been talking about that. And look at Vietnam and China. We becoming closer and closer to each other in the sense that we're trading more and more with each other. Vietnam and China is our biggest trade partner, and the USA is the number two or something. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but that is it. I mean, a lot of you just don't. I understand why. I don't blame you 100% because it is because you're surrounded with misinformation about these two countries, Vietnam and China, and you have a no better source to know about it. That is why you have those thoughts in your head. But I just hope that with my streams, in my channel, I can show you a little bit a different perspective, different narrative about the world, about the geopolitics, especially about Asia and Southeast Asia, something like that. I will be learning Vietnamese soon to discover it. Ooh, okay, welcome, welcome. I'm just telling you, I'm just warning you that it's not easy, but it's very interesting to learn. Vietnam and English are the two languages are very different from each other about in every way. I mean, I think that it's like, as far as how language can be different from each other, Vietnam and Vietnamese and English very kind of on the two sides of a long stick, like totally oppose each other like that. We're different in every way. So actually, sometimes I still think about it. I, I still amazed by the fact that I can speak both languages quite fluently, despite the fact that how difficult and how different they are. Hey. How long Vietnam and China? In the 70s, you mean the with the Khmer Rouge? It was about 10 years. It was China under Deng Xiaoping, and the U.S. under Jimmy Carter supported Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge, and they attacked border Vietnam and kill thousands of Vietnamese people. That was a Ba Chúc massacre that I talk about it in my previous video about the Khmer Rouge and the Pol Pot. So you can go watch it if you want. But yeah, it was a pretty much stressful time. I'm not against or having any grudge over China or anything. I'm just like stating the fact. It's about history and let bygones be bygones. But we need to remember the history, so we will make sure that it will not repeat itself. How good was the whole and Mao relationship? It was pretty okay. Yeah, they had some minor disagreements, but I mean, long story short, China was still a very big force to help. the reunification of Vietnam. So in the 1950s, both Mao and Stalin at that time did not want Ho Chi Minh, this this Ho Chi Minh here. Both of them did not want Vietnam to pursue our path of reunifying our country. At that time, there's a little bit brief summary of the, the history back then. At that time, with the USA, with the North and South Korea situation, the USA wanted Vietnam to be in the exact situation. But that was why they put a puppet government, we put a dictator, a fascist dictator in the south of Vietnam against our own will. There was no election whatsoever for that dictatorship to exist. Nobody justified that except the USA. And it's against Vietnamese people's will. Nobody voted for them. They just put them in the office with violence against our own people. All right. So long story short, they put that, and then they use all lies to justify the existence of that dictatorship in the south of Vietnam. And of course, they got heavily backed and supported and sponsored by the USA, the greatest country on earth, quote unquote. And it was really tough and hard for Vietnamese people, the communists of the north and south of Vietnam, not just the north. Communists, millions of people from the south of Vietnam also joined the communist force and tried to save their countries from the invaders, from the American invaders. It was really hard for a poor country like Vietnam that just got out from a war with French and also 100 years of colonialism by the French. We were the poor country. We didn't have any food to eat, any nothing. Over 95% of Vietnamese people were illiterate. We didn't know how to read and write. At the same time, we have to fight against the almighty USA, right? So at that time, the US, at that time, Mao Zedong and Stalin did not trust about the ability or the strength of the communist force in Vietnam. They didn't trust Ho Chi Minh enough. I mean, I understand them. It doesn't mean that I agree with them, but I understand, like, seriously, just talk about it. I mean, China was still having to fight against, just finish fighting against fascist Japan. And also they're facing a lot of pressure coming from the West with the, after the World War II, and also with the Red Scare, all kind of stuff like that. And Stalin, the USSR at that time, would just got out of the war with the fascist Germany, with Hitler. I mean, the whole world is like on the brink of extinction, like of extinct like that. So like it's like of extinct like that, extinction. The two big allies of Vietnam at the time, the USSR and China under Mao Zedong, was very devastated, tired of war. How, if you were them, how could you believe that a teeny tiny country in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, that could fight against French and then the USA, like next to each other like that? So they did not want Vietnam to continue our fight. They wanted Vietnam to protect what we already had, which was the North of Vietnam, and just leave the South to the USA, just like what they did, with French, the South to the French, and then the USA later. And Ho Chi Minh, and the communists of Vietnam did not agree with that. We want to reunify our country at all costs. That was why Vietnam had a hard time in the 50s when, Stalin died, and then Mao Zedong was left alone, and they lower a lot of the support that the USA and China sent to Vietnam. They still send help, absolutely. They just lower the amount because we didn't follow what they wanted us to do, and we were very stubborn. Yes, we fought tooth and nails for next 20 years, and successfully we kicked out the US troops. We ended the existence of the dictator in the south of Vietnam, the puppet regime, the fascist puppet regime, and also we reunify our country. So that was a quite complicated history between the three countries in the 50s and in the 60s. And then right after that, in the 60s, there was the border skirmish between the USSR and China. You know about that, and it caused a lot more like conflict too. You're talking about how difficult Vietnamese is. We have six tones in our language. Just change one tone, and the whole meaning of the word is different. We change too. Yes, exactly. Do you also have a residence committees in Vietnam? I think we are talking. You're talking about the People's Committee. We do have that. We have a People's Committee in every area. I what you call it, district. We have the People's Committee that is voted. All the people in that, no, the leaders in that People's Committee are voted democratically by the people in the local area. Hey Luna, do Vietnamese citizens need a visa to visit Laos? No, we ASEAN countries, 11 countries, we signed an agreement that we don't need any visa to go to those 11 countries. So we just need to bring our passport and that's it, and fill up a form in the airplane and that's it. I personally went to Thailand and Cambodia a few years ago, and I plan to go to Laos next year. No, please don't say that, Paolo. Please not. I won't show your comment, but please do not say that Vietnam and Laos, we have a really good relationship and we very much respect our borders and we're supporting our comrades. And lately, not lately, in the last a decade, over a decade already, because Laos is a landlocked country. So it is very important, to be able to trade with the rest of the world. And the fact that having no sea is very tough for Laos. That is why Vietnam and Laos just work together, and we have an agreement for over a decade already that Vietnam will give a deep sea port to Laos. So in the sense of like we together, the two countries have a company together, the Viet Lao Corporation or something like that, and Lao actually owns 60% of the capital of the company. In Vietnam only owns 40%, and that company runs the deep sea port. And we are also building the railway that connect directly from Laos to that deep sea port in Vietnam, and also we are building a highway to connect the two capital cities of the two countries. The point is that Laos can just directly bring their products from their country to the deep sea port on the one railway line that and export to the rest of the world. Imagine how much trust you must have to allow other country to use a very important part of your land like that. To use a whole deep sea port requires a lot of trust to do that. That is why, like, Paolo, you should never say that. That is insulting for both Laotian and Vietnamese will never think that. We don't. We consider them friends. Laos, they sacrifice a lot for the war in Vietnam, and a lot of Laotian, even though they were even not officially involved in the war, they would try to maintain the neutrality. But they still, like the people so close together, we help each other a lot, and they support our communism, and they also follow the socialist path. That is why, we trust each other. That is why Vietnam and Laos, we have the highest title of relationship, which is the great friendship. And nobody can beat that because literally Laos and Cuba, they paid a lot for our fight against colonialism and imperialism, and it was paid by blood and flesh. So that is why I told you that no country on earth would ever beat that title, at least in the in a foreseeable time in the future, foreseeable future. I won't see that. None of the country will beat that because you don't know how much sacrifice, how much blood and flesh, you know, how much loss the two countries, Laos and Cuba, had, did for Vietnam. It's really, really tough to compete with that. Oh my gosh, checking the chat right now. And yeah, I talk about this a lot too. Laos is for like we are walking on the kind of exact same path with the countries so close to each other, and we share the same, a lot of material conditions, not exactly the same, but a lot. And Laos is also having a lot of difficulties, especially since they are landlocked countries. That is why we let them use one of our very big deep sea port. Um, Many times, here's the thing, because Vietnam, we've been receiving a lot of attacks coming from the West, especially talking about how Vietnam is traitor to communism, or actually Vietnam love capitalism. Vietnam is capitalist. Vietnam is ally to the USA. Vietnam will lick the boots of the USA, or blah blah blah. Vietnam will ally with the USA, something like that. That is why it's I kind of want to, I kind of half want you to know about Laos, and the other half do not want you to know about Laos. Because first of all, I want you to know about Laos because Laos is also a great example of how communists fight fiercely against imperialism and colonialism to maintain their socialist path, and what great achievement they had in their own home country, even though they still have a lot of difficulties and hardship to deal with, but they achieved a lot. But on the other hand, I do not want you to know about it. I want you to forget about Laos' existence because I also do not want to see the same attacks against Laos, like attacks against Vietnam, because it's very painful. I mean, it's painful to watch, our comrades being attacked like that, being misunderstood like that. So, like, I kind of want the Western media outlets to forget about Laos. So just let them be, let them pursue their own path. Just do not go attack them so they can do that in peace. And we are here. We will take all the blames. We'll take all the attacks. Fine, but just like, hey, just don't go attack Laos because like they have so many difficulties and hardship already. Gosh, cut them some slack. Give them some break. Yeah, I have a Lao friend. They're cool though. I mean, we have a lot of Laosian students in Vietnam. They're very sweet. I met some of them in my university. They're very sweet. Yeah, Lao people are closer culturally to Thai than to Vietnam. Exactly. Exactly. Oh, since we have let's talk about this a little bit. I did talk about colonialism and the French colonialism before. Okay, let me give you a little bit of The atrocities that French colonialism did in Vietnam to connect to the point that I'm bringing up right after this. So, just in case you don't know yet, Vietnam became a colony of France since 19th century, around that. And we were under the occupation, under the control of French imperialism for about 100 of years. They came to Vietnam and they brought rubber trees, black pepper, and coffee. And they started plantation in Vietnam and they forced millions of Vietnamese people to work in their plantations as slaves. And it was devastating for the country and the history of Vietnam, and they were horrible. They were absolutely horrible that it's hard for me to put into words. They treated Vietnamese like animals. They intentionally withhold education from our own people. The point is to make us, not know how to read and write, not know anything about our history, and to worship them like their masters. They treated our men like slaves and our women as worse sexual objects. And they forced us into prostitution, horrible, and they forced us to grow opium. They forced us to, to hand in all the opium that we grow for them and then bought back. We had to buy back the opium back from them. So like they intentionally make our nation become an kind of addicted people so they can easier for them to control. It was horrible, devastated. They did that for 100 of years, as over entire century. And it's just 100 of years, but it caused so much loss in Vietnam and pain and trauma that we still, I know, like a lot of people, our country's not fully recovered yet. And also right after that, we had to fight against the imperialist USA. And then the 10 years against Pol Pot and communists at the back from the USA, Jimmy Carter. It's like continuous like that. And then we receive a comprehensive sanction from the USA for daring to end the existence of the genocidal regime communist. It was the history of Vietnam in 1 minute right there, right? All right. Vietnam was lucky enough to be able to kick out the French colonialists to end the existence of French government in Vietnam, but a lot of countries in Africa did not have that luck. Many countries in Africa to this day still being under the neo-colonialism coming from France. And that is messed up. That is unfair. That need to end. All right? And with the things that's been going on in African countries like Niger, we need to look at it in a very nuanced kind of perspective and just look at how Vietnamese people, we sympathize with Niger a lot, even though most of us do not know much about the nature of the coup or who are the leaders in Niger right now. What we are sure about is that under French colonialism, nothing good can happen to Niger. All right, that is the thing that I am confident to say, that vast majority of Vietnamese people sympathize with Niger people and understand why they would want to end French colonialism, because we were in the exact same situation. It was devastated. Niger, they have a very big, huge uranium mines, and it accounts for about 5 to 17% of the world. I could be wrong, but around that number. And they account for 20% of uranium in Europe. And with this new situation emerged, and they want to end the existence of French army and French control in their own country, French will be in a bad situation. And boy, oh boy, I'm observing it. I mean, France also lost. They lost a lot of things when they lost to Vietnam in 1954 with the full victory. I mean, yeah. Now, the thing is, here the thing. The fact that it is 2023 already, and France still in control of so many countries in Africa, it is ugly truth. It's unfair. It should not exist. We should end that somehow. It's 21st century. Come on, like seriously, we are so messed up that we still see that and we still think that that's normal. And I mean, and the newest news that I just got is that Nigeria stopped exporting uranium to France and European countries or something like that. And they also raised the price of uranium from 0.8 euros, 0.8 for kilogram to 200 euros for a kilogram. And just in case you don't know about how France been controlling Niger, this is like long story. I'm not an expert. Same. I'm just like telling you what I've been trying to talk a lot and research a lot, and this is what I know. On top of everything that they, the army control, the politics control, the government control, they French, French capitalists and neo-colonialists, they sent, capitalists to Niger. They opened mine company to mine uranium out and gold, uranium and gold out of Niger. They use dirt cheap labor of Niger. They paid like Nigerian workers next to zero to dig up uranium and gold for them, and they exported all of those things out of Niger to Europe, to France, and they just paid again next to zero, nothing, back to Niger. Uranium was 0.8 euros, something like that. It's like, that is laughable price. It's really laughable. Maybe you'd rather not pay anything because it's laughable, all right? And they took all of that and brought back to their home country, motherland, which is France, the great nation of France. Yeah, they left in Nigeria with the poor. 90%. Listen to this. Uranium of Niger accounts for 20% of uranium that Euro uses. Okay, with their, they use uranium. They need uranium for their nuclear power plants. It accounts for 20% of that outcome, of that output. Meanwhile, domestically, 90% of Niger population doesn't have electricity. Wow. What a great world we're living in. And millions of Nigerian people have to live on the aid coming from other countries because they were unable to feed themselves. They could not do farming good enough to feed their people, and they were forced, just like Vietnamese farmers were forced to work in rubber tree plantations. Nigerian people were forced to work in the mines, the gold mines, and in the uranium mines owned by their French masters. Nothing changed, nothing different from Vietnam 100 years ago. So there you go. $5 a day for Nigerian workers in the mines and the worst working condition imaginable. Fun fact: France actually launched a vote in election in the past, and a vote in the past for Guyana people to decide to stay with France or become an independent country. And of course, according to that vote that is run by France, Guyana decided to stay as French colony. Wow, surprising. Gosh, it's so disgusting. We've been talking a lot about, imperialism in the USA, imperialism in Canada and the UK, but we do not talk enough about France. How horrible they are. And also, I don't know how it, but they have a great succeed in, great succeeds in like indoctrinating the rest of the world into believing that the guy Macron is somehow a very decent guy, great leader, blah blah blah, and trying to maintain peace. Like, what are you talking about? No, no. Just look at what France been doing in African countries. Like, no, it's just the same freaking thing. Just because they have a scapegoat right now, which is the USA, so people tend to forget about the atrocities that France has been committing all over the world. Macron is a neoliberal, absolutely. But like, I don't see enough people like, talking about what the horrible things that France been doing and how Macron is actually like actively supporting them. I have heard that United States and we have official visit. Yeah, this is the main topic today, and we just talk about it. Next week, in I think like the next 5 days, Joe Biden will come to Vietnam. France is genuinely one of, if not the most successful European empire. I mean, it's true. The UK is the most successful, but then because they, like they the top hat, so they receive a lot of recognition, right? I mean, I'm not saying they are not like horrible, but like they are horrible, they like the worst. But then because they're the top tier, so like people tend to like observe them a lot, look at them a lot, learn about them a lot, and criticize them a lot. But France kind of sneak its neck in here, like I was like the second worst, but because it's second, so it was tend to forget about it. And they use the money, go around and lecture other people how to be great succeeds of neoliberalism. Meanwhile, the truth is they live on the actual blood and flesh of hundreds of millions in the world. Neo-colonialism. Portugal, Netherlands, Britain. I mean, it is a tough competition to decide actually which was the worst. They all the worst. I mean, yeah. How does France still has a colonial country? Is strange to me. See, it's strange to you because your mainstream media just not talking about it. They just talk about France in the past tense, Napoleon Bonaparte and then colonialism in the 19th century and early 20th century, and that was it. They act like suddenly after the 20th century, somehow France stopped being a colonial country magically. Even though they never had any successful revolution or something, they had a revolution, but it was pushed down really hard like right after that. So I mean, yeah, everybody's just not talking about the 21st century France at all. Act as if it is just a decent democratic country in Europe that is doing pretty well. Tend to forget about where the wealth comes from. Okay. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm checking the chat right now. See if you have any questions for me. Weird. Oh, I'm trying to make sure. I'm checking my stream elements to make sure I won't miss any donations. All right. France has a very large right-wing movement. Most people don't know this exactly. I mean, they having kind of fascism is rising in France again. With a lot of things happen in the last few years. I'm from a colonized nation, so I'm not surprised by France. Same here, not surprised. It's just like an moment. Like, okay, makes sense. Yeah. Hey Luna, is it easy to learn Vietnamese if I speak Mandarin, Southern Chinese dialects? Yeah, you can. It's pretty It's pretty easy if you already speak Mandarin. I mean, Vietnamese writing system is easier to remember, not like the Chinese writing system. That is a plus. Our grammar kind of about 70% the same. Like the subject, the object, and the subject, the verb, and the object, or the adjective and the noun, something like that. Yeah, and the pronunciation actually, the Vietnamese pronunciation is more aligned with Cantonese than Mandarin, but it still makes sense. I mean, it's easy. It's easier for Vietnamese to learn Mandarin. I don't know about the other way around though, because we have a lot of Vietnamese Chinese words that we use, and a lot of times we can just like translate them between each other and learn the basic difference, to learn the formula for that, and we can understand that. But to be exact, Vietnamese and Cantonese are very much kind of match each other a lot. It was like the word ngân hàng, like the bank in Vietnamese. In Mandarin, it is a yin hang, right? Yin hang or something like that, ngân hàng. But like in Cantonese, it's almost exactly the same. Ngân hàng. That is the Cantonese and Vietnamese in ngân hàng. So it's very interesting to learn, the relationship between the three languages. Very interesting. The Guangxi dialect. My family is from Guangxi, by the way, so technically neighbors. Ayo! Ni hao. Here's the thing too. I learned Mandarin though. I do not. I did not learn Cantonese in university and schools at all. I learned actually Mandarin because we did not have an option of Cantonese. But then based on me watching enough Cantonese speaking movies and TV shows, I can understand some Cantonese. Not an expert though. Yeah, I learned some words like ngân hàng and a lot of words like hạnh phúc. It's like 幸福, but actually in Cantonese it's exactly the same thing like hạnh phúc or something like that. But yeah, a lot of, I mean, when you say that, because it sounds just like Vietnamese, so we would recognize it like pretty much possible for us to do that. And hey there, your family's from Guangxi, huh? We technically neighbor. Yeah, it's confusing. Vietnamese English are like subject, verb, object, and Mandarin shift from subject, verb, object to object, subject, verb. It's confusing. Yeah, it's true. Phúc is the same as the prosperity in Cantonese and Hokkien. Yeah, Phúc. It is a Phúc. Ayo. Did did the $27 just rated me? Is that true? Is that right? I saw $27 in the chat. Woo! Hi there. Hi, welcome, Raiders. We just talk about, with Vietnam, I will pick a side between the US and China because Joe Biden is visiting Vietnam and Vietnam is having an official meeting with China right now, a week before that. So it's very interesting to see. But long story short, the answer is no. Vietnam will not sign with either. Vietnam will not sign with neither USA nor China because we maintain our neutrality, strategic neutrality. There you go. Oh yes, I do notice tweet chat. Yes. Oh, I'm checking the chat right now. Ooh, a lot of chat. So, I mean, now talking about languages again, I mean, even though it is quite kind of simple for Vietnamese to learn Mandarin and Cantonese, but the hard part is writing and reading is really hard because we use the Latin alphabet. So it's pretty much simple to remember and understand, but with Chinese writing, it is so hard because you use so absolutely a different system of writing that is so hard. I remember that in university, whenever I had to, take a Chinese exam, mostly all the time that I had, I spent it to, like learn by heart all the letters, to write the letters. I didn't have to spend any time on practicing grammar or speaking or listening at all because it's so simple. But the writing is the hardest part. And yeah, I spent like the whole 3 weeks just to learn all the vocabularies again because if I am unable to remember those letters, those words, I would not be even able to understand the questions, let alone answer them. That is very stressful. Yep. Oh my gosh. That's what we Chinese speakers do initially. Then we start to see patterns in the symbols and to select the meaning to words. Oh, how long will it take to be able to do that though? I mean, wow. I mean, yeah, I mean, it makes sense because like in my class, in my Chinese class, my teacher told me to like, okay, they draw the letter an, an, just like a woman under the roof. It's very meaningful. I mean, it's great. And also he draw like like the the kind of farm, the kind of what you call it in Chinese. So I don't know the farm, the land, and then they draw like four dots in it, and like there's a line for skies and the dot for like the line for cloud or something like that, and it's called the word yu. It means the rain yu. So I mean, it's really interesting, learning about that. But I wish that I could be in this kind of level though. Just look at the words and remember all the parts of it, and then just guess the meaning out of that. Vietnam has interest to join BRICS. I mean, yeah, Vietnam just applied last month or something like that. So the procedure would take about a year or more, at least a year, to consider to be considered, and maybe we would know the result next year or in 2025. But we just applied. That was why Joe Biden desperately wanted to visit Vietnam, and they are coming next week. Ooh. Oh yeah, that's the word. Farm. Yeah, it's mean farm. It's dien in Vietnamese. It's dien. Oh. Oh yeah. Okay. In the 1900s, the top imperialists like England and France knew they would gain much more neo-colonialism than colonialism. Yeah, they put on the mask before they went. Like they were kind of mask off. But then in the 1900s, they put on the mask. Hi, we have a democratically elected president. Somehow we magically stop being colonialist. Just forget about our colonies out there in the world, in Africa. That's so ugly. By the way, it's actually not the John McCain Memorial. It's the memorial to the capture of John McCain. It's a memorial to celebrate the people who shot down his airplane and captured him. So it's quite opposite meaning, but yeah, I get your point. Yep. Kamala Harris just did it last time she visited Vietnam, so it's pretty funny though. Oh, it's Tian in Chinese. Yeah, see, our languages are very much aligned with each other. Yeah, especially Cantonese because like Cantonese and Vietnamese we've been like being like neighbors to each other for so long, so a lot of our languages are like kind of like intertwined with each other like that. But in but like the southern Vietnamese dialectics, like dialects. The Southern Vietnamese dialects are very, very, very different because the accent is so different. So the Cantonese and the Mandarin is mostly aligned with Northern Vietnamese accent, not Southern. Ayo, bye, bye, Mirror Surfer. Bye. See you next week. Is Viet a common name in Vietnam? I work with a lot of Vietnamese people, and there's like 4 of them named Viet. Yes, Viet and Nam are very common names in Vietnam. Viet and Nam, yeah. Viet and Nam and Minh. Yeah, that is the funniest. Americans keep treating it like a memorial to him. I mean, yeah. I mean, here's the thing too. Like mostly all of the countries when they have official visit to Vietnam, they all visit the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum. The mausoleum to Ho Chi Minh, but the USA never did it. The USA never ever did it. So I'm curious. I'm waiting if there is a day that someone from the government of USA would go to Vietnam and actually visit the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum. That would be a memorial day. Thinking about that, I mean, would it happen? Would it ever happen? I don't know. But yeah, Nam is a common name throughout Southeast Asia. I don't know. Nam. I heard the word Nam in the name in China, in Korea. Yeah, not sure about other countries though, but I'm sure that they are Nam. I think it's Nam name in Thai too, but I'm not sure they have the same name. Maybe just the same pronunciation. Yeah, it would probably upset the war veterans if American diplomat visited the mausoleum. Well, I mean, yeah, right. I mean, it's funny though. I mean, here's the thing. I don't know. I don't know if I want to touch this. Nah, just don't have enough time to talk about it. Let's talk about it next broadcast or something like that. But yeah, I'm still. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there is one day that the U.S. official will visit Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum in an official visit. Oh, is that the word Nam in Thai? Right? Is that it? If that is it, what does it mean? What does it mean in Thai language? In Vietnamese, it could mean two things. Nam could mean, like man, boys, like Xander, like the man kind of Xander like that. Or it could be the South, South. So the name Vietnam literally means Viet people from the South, the Southern Viet, because we call ourselves Viet people. So yeah, it has two meanings like that. Gosh, I have to find a way to do this. My gosh. Oh, what a pain in the butt. Okay, here you go. Okay, I just had to ban Paulo because wow, what a pain in the butt. There was a there was a time Vietnam was called Đại Nam, right? Đại Việt actually. It was Đại Việt. Đại Việt. Not Đại Nam, but Đại Việt. Yeah, Đại Việt means the big Viet. It was like in the 15th century or something like that when we still in a we had a feudal the system with the kings. Yeah, we call us. Oh, a Nam mean water. Oh, interesting. Water. Water in Vietnamese is nước. Nước. And in Chinese, it is shui, I think. Yeah, shui. It is shui. Water. Nước. And Vietnamese Chinese word is thủy. The big Viet. Đại Việt, the big Viet. Yeah. It's like ta in Chinese. In Vietnamese, it's đại. What does đại stand for? Đại stand for big. Big or great? My wife knows Chinese from working in Taiwan. Okay, since you mentioned Taiwan, I'm still amazed by the fact that Taiwanese people they still use the full form of Chinese writing. Like, oh my goodness, it is already hard enough to learn the simple form of it. Now they still use the full form like the wow. I don't think that I could survive well in Taiwan if I ever to read and write in Taiwanese like that. I mean, a full form of Chinese. Yeah, they use traditional Chinese, the full form. Like, why so difficult? Hong Kong use traditional Chinese too. Wow, I did not know about this. I already died learning the modern Chinese, let alone the traditional. Wow, man, I tried like checking it out. I was like, no way, no, but just like, nope, big no. Hong Kong, they used to. I don't know if they still do. Oh, okay. Ooh. Really? Seagull channel. Do you find the traditional characters easier to read personally? I mean, it might be easier to read because it has a full forms of over the parts of it, but I'm not sure it would be easier to write though. Right? Oh man, talking about that. Oh boy. Yes. So when I learned Japanese, so Korean was pretty simple in the sense that they have with their own alphabet, which is you just learn the characters of it and you put them together, fine. But Japanese, I think that is worse than Chinese in the sense that they do not just use one alphabet; they use three different alphabets. This was the hiragana, it was katakana, and it was kanji. Yes, and all of them are very much different. And the kanji, it's just the Chinese writing. And okay, when I tried to learn Japanese for a few months, I was fine, speaking it and listening to it's fine because it's pretty much easy to understand. But then when I learned katakana and hiragana, I was like, okay, it's kind of simple, right? Just put the syllables together, fine, the characters together. Okay, fine. And then I learned kanji, and that was a moment like, oh no, the big trauma. One more time. And then I learned that actually in Japan, they use a lot of kanji. Kanji is like very common and they mostly use kanji in their writing, such as like their documents or their books or their anything, formal writings. It was like, oh my goodness. So that was a moment where I kind of stopped learning Japanese. First of all, I was kind of quite busy, couldn't have time anymore. Second of all, man, my biggest obstacle to learn Chinese was writing, and now Japanese, it was already the two different syllables, and the third one, which is the same Chinese writing system, like, and also at the same time because it messed up a lot, especially to me, because I learned Chinese, so I know I associated this word to be this saying. So, for example, it's like 幸福. When you write the word 幸福, it means happy, happiness, right? But then in Japanese, that exact same writing 幸福, but they use a totally different Japanese word for it. It was like, it was too much for my brain to handle because I can't. I already associate this word with this pronunciation in Vietnamese and Chinese too. I cannot just add another word with the same writing. It's too much confusing. That was the moment I stopped learning Japanese. It was so much time and effort put into that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you understand perfectly what I mean, right? Okay, my gosh. Finally, I have someone who understands what I'm talking about. The word take different meanings and pronunciations many times. It's so hard. That is a perfect summary of my experience wanting to learn Japanese just to skip all those Chinese letters and I find out they use them too. And it's even a different level. It's so difficult. This is the big question. Socialism is gonna save the world from climate changes? I mean, I'm not sure that I can answer this question from you, but this is a thing that I can tell you this. Only the socialists truly care about environment. Tell you that. Because capitalists, liberals, neoliberals, on the surface, they say that they care about environment, like those liberals, they just act like, oh, just stop using plastic straws, then you can save the environment. No. Only the true socialists care about the environment, because what we want is to maintain the harmony, coexistence between human and the nature. And our motivation is to live harmony together, to develop together in harmony with each other and harmony with the nature. That is our motivation. Meanwhile, capitalists, liberals, neoliberals, fascists, their motivation is money and power. And that has nothing to do with helping the environment. They will continuously mess up with the environment, with the nature, the point so that they can have more power, they can have more money. Just look at how, the capitalists, they're destroying the environment. They just, emit CO2, toxin, poisonous water to the nature so they can make more money. That's all they care about. How Amazon in Brazil been burned and cleaned out to give land to the capitalists, causing like death to indigenous people in Amazon. Just look at how those capitalists, they do not, like the US, capitalist countries, they just do not sign the agreement, the climate agreement, to to stop or to reduce the amount of CO2 emission. No, like only socialists truly care about it because like money is not our motivation, power is not our motivation. What we want is to live in harmony with each other and with nature. The point is to liberate humanity, to save humanity and save the nature. Money and power are not our motivation. So, yeah. Okay, everybody, we are over time. Thank you so much for being here. Ayo, that's just 20 minutes ago, there's a seagull comrades sent a donation saying you might be interested to know that I just published channel 2 of the English translation of colonized social basis of the female question. Okay, interesting. I'll check it out. Thank you so much, seagull, for your super chat. And also, just 9 minutes ago, there's donation from Mark Clubman. There's no message, but I get your message. Thank you so much for your support, comrades. And that is it. That is it for our stream this week, everybody. I hope that we had a good time together, had some fun time together, and you understand a little bit better about the stand of Vietnam in this new world geopolitical situation between the two, like signs of the world. I mean, neutrality. And Vietnam, the same as China, we believe in the coexistence, the peaceful coexistence, and also develop together cooperatively. And we will not pick a side. So, thank you so much for watching, and bye bye, everybody.